Dungeon Masters of Reddit, what is the most surprising thing your players have done in game? The entire party was about to die until they rolled to see if a player's weasel familiar could remove the cork from a health potion and pour it into the wizard's mouth. He could, and they all lived. I had a player wish for himself to be turned into a stone block. He'd been sent back in time somehow, I forget exactly how, as this game happened in 1996, and was trying to find a way back. So he figured he could stand where the party was when he got sent back in time, wish himself to be turned into a stone block with a message chiseled on it reading "wish for me to be turned into" character name. His logic was they'd find the stone block waiting on their approach and his character would use his wish to change him back before being sent back in time. So, I did that. Then I said to him, "Why didn't you just wish to go back to your own time?" He said, "Oh, I didn't think of that," and he was duly laughed at by everyone. My players tend to do some ridiculous stuff to the point where I could probably fill an entire thread with their shenanigans. But the first and best would probably have to be weaponizing butter. During the first session, the party found themselves in a small town library trying to figure out what's going on. Among other things, they found a book with 1001 uses for butter, just as a throwaway detail. They check it out as well, and I think nothing of it. After the session, I ask for downtime actions and the party's mad scientist comes to me and says I want to make explosive butter. I have him roll for it and he aces it. He then posts a picture to our Facebook group along the lines of "chicken and stick of butter equals chicken shaped blast shadow and cook chicken." The rest of the group runs with this, and it leads to an ever-increasing spiral of butter-related weaponry and paraphernalia. Buying a cow to secure their own supply and hiding it in their basement. Adding some herbs and spices to the mix and creating the basting grenade. After building a BPG, a different player took a skill specialty in food-based weaponry. This of course deserved an equally weird response in kind. See, this kind of abuse of butter didn't go unnoticed, namely by the butter deity herself, Paula Dean. She waged a campaign of harassment against the party for infringing on her domain, eventually culminating in summoning a skyscraper-sized sentient corn on the cob to crush them. In the lore of this world, butter is now a highly controlled substance, and the French have become the most formidable military power in the world. Even when telling non-butter related stories from this game, I can only ever refer to it as Butter Game. Session 1. First session, all of us have ran in. "Save my daughter," says the sad villager. "Okay," says the party. Goes through the dungeon. Sees girl. I firebolt her. Me. What? Yup. The girl was an illusion and the mission was a trick to get the party to unearth an ancient evil. They figured out one half. The girl was a trick. Still unearthed the evil. But the whole party, including myself, was very surprised to see the coward sorcerer shoot a firebolt at a child instead of the skeleton boss. They turned the game into Sim City. PCS are thrown into a dungeon for witchcraft. Get broken out by an agent of the king, who knows they are innocent. Wants them to take down the guy who's going around accusing anyone he considers impure of witchcraft. Because he's cleaning up the kingdom, he has the support of a lot of nobles who are bigoted fricks. That's why the throne can't act too openly against him, and decides to employ the PCS. If they kill him, everyone will just assume it's out of revenge. King's agent basically gives them directions to where they can find this guy, but they get caught up on the detail of some of the nobles being in with him, and decide they want more details. They ask for an example. I throw out the name Lord Hobbs at random, and now the quest is suddenly investigate Lord Hobbs for corruption while completely ignoring the guy who is actually responsible for all of this. So now I need to make a map of Hobbs' mansion and grounds for them to infiltrate, stat out guards and such, and invent something to happen. Turns out Hobbs is being blackmailed into compliance and isn't that bad a guy. He tries to hire the PCS himself to go after Witchfinder douchebag so I can get things back on rails, and then just to tie off this plot cul-de-sac, one of the Witchfinder's agents kills him. PCS finally go after the guy they were supposed to go after, save the day, and as a reward I have the king give them Hobbs' title and mansion so I can reuse the nice map I made as their base, and all seems well. Of course, now they are technically the rulers of a small town. Immediately this becomes their primary focus, ignoring any and all other plot hooks. They want to improve the town, which I now also need to map in detail, invest money, collect taxes, pass ordinances, improve trade routes, etc. Adventuring is now just a way to acquire funds and defeat threats to the town, which starts growing at an alarming rate. Gaming sessions are now 70% discussions on trade, revenue allocation, and fiddling with the town map. In one of my campaigns we had a knight who relied on mounted combat to be effective. He told me after creating his character that he had a contingency plan should his horse die, and all the details. His character came with a buff and mute armor named Patsy and a little squire whose name as far as anyone knew was Squire. I was hesitant to add so many characters, but since one was mute I allowed it. Eventually his horse is killed and he turns a side eye to me and goes, "I activate the contingency plan." All the other players are so confused and dying laughing. As he begins to execute his backup, he pulls a backpack harness out of one of his packs and straps it onto Patsy's back, then climbs in and grabs his lance, and yells, "Yeah, Patsy." He practically piggybacks the rest of the game in order to get his mounted combat bonus. One of the other players asked, "Is Patsy okay with this?" And he responded, "Patsy has long dreamed of this day." Tell me Patsy was clacking coconuts together the whole time. Their very first quest was find out where the dwarfs have gone. 1 year of weekly gaming later, 5 years in game, the dumb fricks finally decided to see where the dwarfs went. They were in the mountains. They were always in the goddamn mountains. Recently they were sneaking through a goblin nest when the ranger felt the foot of a sleeping goblin gently rest against her. It was meant to warn the players that the hollows surrounding them were filled with goblins and that they should continue to be careful. She says, "I reach out with both hands and choke it to death." Wah. What? A high road later, the rest of the group see the ranger do this and proceed to pull bone daggers and other small weapons and follow suit. Now they are crawling in and out of dirt holes, murdering sleeping goblins left and right. Normally their rolls are cursed, but not this time. No low rolls. Several natural 20s and a few minutes later they have brutally murdered 50 goblins and are covered from head to toe in blood, high-fiving each other for being the good guys. One of the early plot hooks was an excommunicated priest having a vision of an angry bear guarding a cave. They got into a debate reminiscent of the swallow coconut debate in Monty Python about whether a bear can properly be said to be angry. They eventually decided to look for the bear, not to investigate the vision, but to see what an angry bear looks like. Our DM always did custom campaigns. There would be special items made up by him and he would make unique classes for each of us to play. He was really good at it and our group played for years and had some awesome adventures. One time I was leaning a little too hard into my chaotic evil side and long story short my team sold me to a group of devils from one of the planes of heck. They took me to this ancient relic thing that would transform me into a being of heck. What I got was based on my roll from a percentage die, so out of 100, 1% minus 95% being terrible, 96% minus 100% being I might get something good. I had a one-time use item where I could pick my roll, some mystic scroll about deciding fates, so I chose 100%. The DM turned me into a fallen archangel. Boys oh boys did I knock that campaign off course when I showed back up. I would like to sniff the door handle. You don't detect anything unusual. I would like to lick the door handle. It tastes like regret. The party had to fight a powerful Mero that had a talisman they needed. Instead of fighting him, they tricked him into marrying a baboon that they polymorphed into a beautiful mermaid, getting the talisman in exchange. It was so absurd that I had to go along with it. Nobody can say no to good tale. They'd driven a brother duo of dwarfs from town, really Duga in disguise. Then they decided that instead of following up on my elaborate plans for an Underdark conspiracy campaign, that would instead fight the city council over the dwarf brothers' abandoned forge, so that they could work an elaborate real estate scheme. I'm trying to figure out which Underdark race would make the best realtors, in an attempt to get the campaign back on track. Rather than kill some hired thug that attacked them, they subdued him, tied him up, and questioned him. They gave him a name, Jimothy, and let him go, telling him that he was a good strong lad who'd be better suited to a job in construction than this murdering business. I threw in a cameo of him later, happy in his new job. Via a combination of spells, alchemy, and teamwork, they enlarged the wizard's raven familiar, shrunk the gnome, glued the gnome to the raven, and had the raven fly along city walls while the gnome lobbed spells at the guards. My players once pooled all of their cash at about level 4 to buy a tavern and retire instead of following the plot any further. That was it, campaign over. They decided to play medieval fantasy It's Always Sunny. Player. I cast death spell. ME. Great. Do you target the cultist swinging the golden ritual sickle, or the one holding the screaming baby? Player. I target the baby. Me. Can't sacrifice a living infant if the infant is dead. Guys got a solid plan TBH. Failed the simplest puzzle I have ever made, instead choosing to trial and error their way across a floor covered in pressure plates. I had a campaign last for 2 years once. The world I had created, called Adrigal, had been cursed with an undead plague by the god of the dead as a sort of loophole to grow more powerful than his deity brethren. The curse didn't hold though, and the PCS saw humankind return to normal, except for them. They remained undead, and since they existed in a state of neither living nor dead, they soon realized that they were the only ones who could stop this from ever happening again. We had friends come and go. Dear NPCs died. PCS grew stronger and closer. We had funny moments and sad moments. Moments of dire frustration and confusion. We had invested hours of our lives getting to know these characters. Then the day came. Having slain death itself, they had one loose end to tie up, a void dragon threatening to assimilate the material plane with the ethereal plane. It was quite literally a battle of gods, and I remember it like it was yesterday. The battle was hard fought and most of the level 16 party was down to single digit HP once the beast was dead. Having dispatched the universe's greatest foe in his own domain, all that was left was to go back home. But there is a catch. The portal back to the material plane can only be held open from the ethereal side. One of them had to stay back. At this point I'm getting choked up, even though I had planned this for more than 2 years. The only female in our party starts to cry, then all the guys lose it. Our withered oracle, Cedar, speaks up and says he will do it, having seen a prophecy of sacrifice early in the campaign. He thought it was destiny. The room falls silent. Then our rogue speaks up. I don't know about everyone else, but if Cedar isn't coming, then back there, the material plane, isn't much of a home at all. I am like bawling at this point. In the end, the saviors of the universe chose rather to be banished from their home world, forever to be trapped in the ethereal plane, than to abandon one of their friends. As the portal slowly closed, and they watched their dimension slowly sink out of view, our bard flicked a coin through the crack in reality. It was like a thing for him to flick a coin at anyone he had saved helped. We are playing another campaign now, set in the same world, and as long as I live, as long as Adrigal exists, if you look up to the northern sky on a clear night, you just might be able to make out the faint glimmer of a golden star. Sailors and navigators often use it for traveling purposes, and it goes by many names. Most call it the token of heroes though. Star Wars game. Gambler gets shot, medic fails his role and declares him dead. Party makes their escape, leaving his body. I tell player to make a new character. He isn't dead but he will be out until they can do a rescue. He grins. Not dead. We need some alone time. 8 daikon and force point equals new Imperial intelligence agent. He spent the next year screwing the group and the alliance from the inside. He took being left behind super personally. When the party figured out the source of all the crappy luck, I thought he was going to die laughing. They were all so mad. I gave my players a little more free will than a typical story arc, just to see what would happen. They inevitably went evil, ransacking every town, becoming a roving band of bandits, torturing key NPCs for info. When they got to a major city they couldn't walk through the main gate because of the bad reputation they gained. So they snuck in, took the king hostage, and launched him over the walls from a catapult claiming the city. When they finally met the main antagonist of my story arc, instead of killing the Dark Lord joined the party because the party gained an incredibly evil reputation. It was a hilarious story arc. I want to gouge out his eye. You don't have a weapon on you. I'll use my thumb. So I roll for unarmed, I guess. They became obsessed with a random loom I threw in as flavor text. Our Sork crit failed his arcana check on it, which convinced him that it was the loom of great portent. Demonic rites were performed on it to help them make decisions and carted it around everywhere they went. They started a band called the Lumineers. Their secret society was called the Illuminati, the Fellowship of the Loom to Outsiders. Loom puns for days. We sell games ourselves out of our DM's attempt to kill us all off. Wandered into, I want to say Asmodeus, one of the chaotic evil deities, someone's castle at about level 4. One of our party was running chaotic evil, and so was trying to get us all killed. Rest of us were some combination of lawful, good, and neutral. We're wandering through the house trying to find something, when we accidentally stumble into Asmodeus himself. Our chaotic evil friend had met with him previously to try to hand us over to him to kill. So we're trying not to die, and one of our party, the mage, decides to try the old Goku trick. No, see, we're really weak right now. So if you let us go and train and come back stronger, it'll be much more fun for you. It'll take more than just a look to kill us. DM tells him to roll a persuasion with disadvantage. Natural 20 on the first roll. Natural 20 on the second roll. We walked out alive, left the chaotic evil idiot there to die, and never went back. I was deeming for my mom and grandma. They got hungry and butchered and ate a hobgoblin. I was so shocked I had no idea how to react. I guess, technically, it's not cannibalism for an elf and a half-elf to eat a hobgoblin. It was only surprising the first time, but I had a friend who always played a cleric. Every single time, his character would buy the largest mount he could get, an elephant, usually. Then he'd ride it to death, make dry rations from its meat, animate it, fit it with heavy bedding and travel around and comfort from inside its, now padded, ribcage. Basically a cross between an RV and a tank. The party discovered an ancient ruin containing a massive relic that could open portals to other planes. The idea being it was like the castle in Mario 64, and they'd have various dimensional adventures while discovering the disturbing secrets within the ruins. Here's what actually happened. 1. Open a portal to the plane of alcohol. 2. Build a pipeline out of the plane of alcohol. 3. Set up a distribution center. 4. Take over the national alcohol market by undercutting competition thanks to their low cost of supply. 5. Establish a monopoly on all liquor. Great. Then IT got weird. 6. Defeat an evil alchemist experimenting with undeath. 7. Discover his formulas to turn living people into mindless undead. 8. Put the formula into the alcohol supply. 9. Acquire an army of undead alcoholics. 10. Use the army to fight the fricking lich that they ignored for the whole goddamn campaign. My players one time managed to totally miss the huge fire elemental on guard as they flew into a valley. After it successfully snuck up on them, the bard revealed he spoke Ignan and managed to befriend it. During an adventure to an elven city, one of my players started a sundial wristwatches pyramid scheme. Sub managed to pull it off with high charisma rolls. Now it's a running joke throughout the campaign. Everywhere the party goes is a sales opportunity for sundial wristwatches. Inspiration to us all. Not sure if my DM will see this thread, so I can tell the story from a player's perspective. We were running Curse of Strahd and we were nearing the end. We were in the final castle and had found a teleporter type magic device with a bunch of predetermined destinations based on small gems and cryptic hints. Based on the hints, we had narrowed down that there are 2 possible options that would take us directly to Strahd's tomb where we would have the drop on him. We were basically decided when I, the druid, decided to read way too much into the other clue. I made a long, overly interpretive argument for why it was the other one, and I genuinely thought it was. I had all but one party member convinced, but since we voted on it he went along with us. We made our choice. DM asks, are you sure? Never a good sign. He sighs and I see him turn back many pages in the Strahd book we were running through. We essentially teleported to the other side of the world. The campaign takes place in a small region, but we literally could not have been further from where we previously were. Not only that, but we teleported to the end of a dungeon, so we had to do it backwards. We are standing outside the final boss room and we accidentally extended the campaign another 2 months because I thought I was the only one clever enough to unravel a hint that wasn't nearly as cryptic as I thought. One of our players made a huge point about not wanting to hurt kids. They were on an assassination mission but told not to stir up politics. Well, they got there, killed a few guards, then stumbled into a little kid's room. He wasn't older than 5. They made sure he was safe and okay and then left him in the room. Finally they found the Lord's room. Inside he and several of his house servers were killed with a political rival's name carved in their foreheads. Their best short notice plan was to cut all their heads off and burn the place down. No one remembered the kid until the next session. Hard guilt was had all around. This is Diamond SpongeBob. He only appears every 200,000 videos. Subscribe for good luck. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.